All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the Sunday night matchup between the Eagles and the Rams. An underrated matchup going into the weekend, or over the weekend. And the Rams are coming in at 5-5 on the year. The Eagles are coming in at 8-2. They did match up in the regular season last year, and the Eagles did win that game. I forget what the score was, but it was like early on. It was like week 3 or 4 of last year. And I'll pull up the stats from that game. But, this game, we got stars all over the place. Both quarterbacks, of course, the running backs, the receivers. I mean, it definitely has that Sunday night feel to it with these two teams, especially with the Rams. Obviously banged up this year, missing their top 2 receivers, but they will have them in this game, which will make it more entertaining. So this was back in week 5 of last year. The Eagles won that game 23-14. They shut out the Rams in the second half. It was 17-14 at the half, and then, like I said, the Eagles shut them out. So let's see what happens in this game. But one thing I will say about the Eagles, their defense has been playing really well. They played well last week against the Commanders, a team that was playing really, really well offensively. And, they kind of shut them down. And, I do kind of worry about the Rams in this matchup just because, of, like I said, how well the Eagles defense is playing. And we saw, when they played the Dolphins defense a couple weeks ago, they just couldn't get anything going. And, I think the Eagles defense is probably the better unit of the two. So, yeah, like I said, I worry about the Rams in this matchup, especially with their young corners, their secondary. It's been playing really well. So, yeah, I do worry about the Rams and their offense in this matchup. And then, of course, with the Eagles and the playmakers they have on the offensive side of the ball, Saquon Barkley has been unbelievable this year. He has been everything as advertised, which, I think we all knew he was going to do well in Philly because he has an offensive line that he can actually run behind now. And, Jalen Hurts has done a nice job limiting the turnovers here. So, I do lean in the favor of the Eagles in this matchup. And looking at the offensive stats for these two teams, so the Rams are top 10 in passing yards per game, 255.7 they're averaging. The Eagles are only averaging 220.2, which is 21st. But they are the number 1 rushing team in the NFL. They are averaging 181.3 rushing yards per game. And it's not just Saquon Barkley. It's also Jalen Hurts as well running with the football. The Rams are 26th. They're only averaging 95.4 rushing yards per game. And then points per game, Eagles are 7th. Rams are 21st. And then defensively, Eagles defense is actually 2nd against the pass, giving up an average of 192.3. Rams defense is giving up an average of 245.4. And then rushing yards, they're giving up an average. The Eagles are top 10. They're 7th, giving up an average of 99.9. And the Rams defense is 18th, giving up an average of 127.3. And then points allowed, Eagles defense is 6th. Rams is 22nd. So really, when you look at it, right now it's advantage Eagles. And, that's not to say the Rams are not going to come out and, have a good game plan. Because the Eagles defense is still going to have to deal with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, who have both been great since they've come back. And look, the Rams, the first game that they came back, they played against the Vikings. And the Vikings, were playing really good football. They've kind of, toned it down a little bit since that 2-game losing streak. But, they're still winning games. That was a tough game, and the Rams were able to win that. So the Rams could win this game. But I just think the Eagles right now are the better team. I think when you look at the coaching matchup between Nick Sirianni and Sean McVay, you would take Sean McVay. But I think the Eagles have the better talent going in. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have a big game here. Had a big game last week against the Commanders. Well, a big second half. Because the Commanders actually kind of shut him down for a while. But then he woke up and took over that game. And he really has been a difference maker for this team. I don't know what the Eagles would have been like had Saquon not have gotten there because the offense has still been good, but they have struggled. I mean, I've gone through the wins, some of their wins this year, but last week, the Commanders, look, a lot of people, including myself, thought that they were going to go into Philly and beat them, and they've done it before, and they played well against Philly last year, but Philly answered the bell, and they got the win, and this is a big game here. This is a big game for both. Well, this is really a bigger game for the Rams because the Eagles right now, their path to the playoffs is much easier than the Rams, mainly because their record is much better. And you know what? This might be a team that I also got right, the Eagles, because I picked them to win the division. I did. I thought we were going to see a return to how they were a couple years ago. Now the defense is playing good. Saquon's running the football effectively. You got A.J.Brown back. Devontae Smith, I think, was questionable once again going in, if I'm not mistaken, but he should play, I would imagine. Kind of looking at some of the injuries here. So, yeah, Devontae Smith, he did not practice on Thursday, so he's questionable going into this game. And then for the Rams on their side, I got a couple of offensive linemen that are questionable going in, but I would imagine they're probably going to be fine. And they're going to need to be because that Eagles pass rush, that Eagles defense can make things tough on Matthew Stafford. The matchup that you want to focus on is the Rams receivers against these Eagles corners. How is that going to go? Now, I think both sides are going to win their share of matchups. I don't think the Eagles defense is going to completely shut down Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua, he's been good since he's come back. Had a touchdown, his first touchdown of the season last week against the Patriots. Cooper Kupp had a couple of touchdowns as well. They're going to have their hands full with those receivers. They'll make their fair share of plays. I'm looking for Kyren Williams to have a big game because he hasn't scored a touchdown in a few weeks. Pretty much the first, 8 games of the season, he had a touchdown in like every game. Let me just double check. So, yeah, he had a touchdown. He hasn't scored a touchdown since October 20th against the Raiders. So I'm looking for him to get into the end zone this week. But this is a big game. This is a big game for the Rams. You're right there with the other teams in your division. Right now, they're in second place, right? Yeah, they're in second place in their division because they have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks and the Niners. But they're a game behind the Cardinals, and the Cardinals play the Seahawks this week. So we could see a scenario where if the Seahawks win, then you're going to have you're going to have 4, 6, and 5 teams. If also the Niners win as well. So if every team except the Seahawks win, you're going to have a tie for first place for everybody. It's going to be a 4-way tie. So I'm hoping for that. Partly because of my picks, but I have the Eagles winning this matchup, so it wouldn't happen. But I'll take it. I mean, if the Rams win, I'll take it. Because the Rams are one of my wild card teams, and they still have a chance to do it. But, this is a tough game here. And I do like the Eagles to win. I'm going to say the final score is around 28-24. I think it's going to be high scoring. Like I said, the Eagles defense has been playing well, but I don't think they're not going to do what the Dolphins defense did. I think that might have just been an aberration. I think they'll get pressure on Matthew Stafford, maybe force Stafford into a mistake, but I do think the Rams will get into the end zone in this game, not like they did on Monday night where they kicked 5 field goals. So, but having said that, though, I like the Eagles in this spot. They're playing good football right now, and I think that continues here. And like I said, right now they're in a great spot to win the division. And I did have them winning the division before the year started. Didn't look good. Looked like Washington might take it, but the Eagles, are really talented. And, that collapse from last year, as for the moment, looks like a thing of the past. And Saquon Barkley has made a huge difference. I think if you have DeAndre Swift running the football again this year, like Swift was good for them last year, don't get me wrong, but Saquon has made a huge difference. Saquon's the better runner of the two. And, that just makes them that much better. And the defense has made improvements from last year. So it's a good football team. This is a dangerous team going into the playoffs. And I think right now, this is the team that has the best shot to knock off the Lions at this very moment. Because, you look at the NFC South and how the Falcons are playing, and I don't even know if they're going to win the division. The Bucks get Mike Evans back, so, that could get a little dicey. The Commanders, Jaden Daniels is banged up right now. In the West, the Niners are not playing great. The Cardinals are already lost to them. The Rams lost to them. Every team, except for the Niners, they play later in the year. But every team other than the Niners has lost to the Lions if you're in the NFC West. So I think it's the Eagles. I think the Eagles got a great chance. They got the best chance to do it. Now, does that mean they will do it? Well, we'll have to wait and see once we get to the playoffs. But this team at this moment, I think, has the best chance to knock them off. But we'll find out if that ends up happening. But let me know what you guys think about this game. Who do you think wins? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our next break. And then when we come back, we'll take a look at the college football matchups for this weekend. We'll take a look back at some of the scores from last week. Also, we'll talk about the early games for Sunday in the NFL. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.